Hello and welcome to the Health Fridge podcast. I'm your host, Holly B. Today I am talking with Oksana Hansen. She is the founder of Quantum Lens Wellness, a quantum biology based healing practice helping women reclaim their health at the cellular level. After years of struggling with conventional approaches, Oksana discovered the power of circadian rhythms, mitochondrial health, and nature based healing. And now she empowers others to do the same. Her work blends science, spirituality, and mindset to help women finally feel better in their bodies. When I started learning about quantum biology and how quantum biology affects us on such a cellular level, and I started learning all the principles that were involved in this, I realized how powerful this was to really supporting that foundational health that I always talk about and coach on in my programs. And I really made so many shifts in the way I go about my daily business and my daily health routine. And it made such a difference in my health experience with lupus. And so I'm really excited to share this conversation with Oksana with you because we really deep dive into the concepts behind quantum biology and how you can start to incorporate them into your life. Now, quantum biology and circadian rhythm go hand in hand, and this involves the power of the sun as that foundational nutrient for life. And when you have lupus, which many of I know my listeners do, and the women that I work with do, we can be scared of the sun, right? The sun can be a big trigger for our symptoms and flares. So I really wanted to talk about this a lot in the episode, and we touch on how to create a healthy working relationship with the sun when you are in that state of fear, and how we can build up to a healthy level of sunlight exposure naturally, slowly, and in a way that won't trigger your flares. So, we talk a lot about sunlight in this episode. We talk a lot about how to manage your artificial light environment and how that affects you on a cellular level as well. And then we also talk about hydration. We talk about the difference between hydrating your blood versus hydrating your cells and why you need to know about both, why they are both very important, and why it's not just all about drinking water to stay hydrated. There's a much deeper level of hydration involved here when it comes to quantum biology. This is especially important for people with autoimmune conditions to understand the difference between both and why and how building up this hydration within your cellular structure is so fundamentally important in helping reduce your autoimmune symptoms. So, lots to talk about here. I'm going to let us dive into the episode with Oksana. Be prepared to take some notes and save this one for future reference as you start to implement it into your daily health habits. Oksana Hansen, welcome to the show. I'm very excited to dive into this whole world of circadian rhythm, quantum biology, and really get into some of the details of why people should care about this stuff and what it even means.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, my journey into learning about this whole other this whole other way of looking at health on a very, very root cellular level came through some of your colleagues, Carrie B, Sarah Kleiner, who I found out you are hosting an amazing event in June featuring all of these specialists in this field of research. And I'm like, how have I not heard of Oksana before? So I'm super excited to really get to know you and follow you as well. But when I found their platforms and I started learning about, what they were talking about, why sunlight, for example, is so important, why regulating your sleep patterns is so important, why, getting your body clock on its on the rhythm that it's designed to be on is so important in health. It made me realize that we have like been missing the bigger picture, especially when it comes to Western medicine. And I'm not knocking Western medicine, it's there for a reason. There's so many good aspects of it. However, when you are in a state of autoimmune dysfunction, if you are in a cancer diagnosis, if you are in some of these chronic health states and struggling, I want to suggest, and now that I've learned about the quantum biology model as well as root cause trauma, like there's so much more to the picture here. And so that's what I want to dive into today with you is getting getting into and understanding what some of those root causes are and why something as simple as sunlight exposure can be so can have such a huge effect on the way our body functions. So I'll let you dive in and maybe give a little background on you and how you came to this whole field of study and what a change it's made in your life. And then we'll get into some of the finer details.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that introduction. And I think my story is very important to highlight when it comes to this conversation because I had skin cancer at 12, or at least enough of a big concern of a spot that I had on my back that I was put under anesthesia and had it removed. Again, those were the days where everything was paper records. I went back trying to search for any information on the surgery that I had, but I knew it was skin related and a big mark that I had on my back. However, since then, I had seen a dermatologist 2 times a year, every single year. And why this is pertinent to my story is because I'd literally been monitored for skin cancer my entire life since the age of 12 to only do everything that they've ever told me to get diagnosed with melanoma at the age of 35. And I was so confused. I was hurt. I was confused. It didn't make any sense. Like to me, it felt like melanoma was a disease old white men got. I didn't know that somebody who was in their early 30s could have this. And it was very scary because melanoma, of course, being the third and most aggressive form of skin cancer, also has irregular borders, spreads quickly. That diagnosis was really scary. And originally, I had to address the melanoma and get it off my body. But what happened after was this spiritual almost journey because I started questioning everything. So when they were telling me to lather on sunblock, not go outside, cover myself up, especially now that I had melanoma, had risk of having it over again, I was going back to the doctor every single month for the first 2 years. Then I feel like we went to quarterly for the next 2 years. And now I'm 5 years cancer free. And I stopped going to the doctor to get my skin checked. And I know that that sounds crazy, but it was right before COVID happened. And so it was a perfect storm because I knew that I was doing everything that the doctors told me to do. And I got diagnosed with melanoma. Then COVID happened. I started questioning, why do we get sick? How does these diseases spread? What do I need to know to protect myself and my family moving forward? And I came across the Institute of Quantum Biology. And I didn't really know what it was. I had a philosophy degree, I studied data analytics. So I had this logical brain, but I didn't have a science background. So I enrolled on a whim and I didn't have any intention to build a career out of it. It was literally for me to learn and educate how do I take care of myself and how do I take care of my family. And when I learned that the sun gives life to everything on earth and that we cannot live without sun, it was the first time it all made sense. Of course, we were taught to fear the sun, but the sun has all these healing properties. And I remember being in this cohort, and Carrie Bennett was actually the lead faculty for the Institute of Quantum Biology. And she did this presentation on skin cancer. And I was shocked because not only are we slathering on sunblock that is super toxic, we're actually blocking certain rays of light that our body needs and therefore creating the cancer. So you look at every single study that has ever been done on skin cancer, and you'll find the same pattern. The pattern is they're using albino mice. That means the mice have no melanin. So again, nothing like the skin that humans have, right? You put us in sunlight, we'll start getting a base tan, we'll start building melanin in our skin. And as a result, our skin will be able to tolerate more harsher UVB light for longer. These albino mice cannot. Not only are they albino, they're also nocturnal, meaning they were not meant to be seeing the sun. And thirdly, they are not using the sun to do these studies. They're using this archaic lamp called the arc lamp. The light from that light spectrum of the arc lamp looks nothing like the full spectrum light, which is like the rainbow that you get outside. And you look at the industry, it's a $16 billion industry, sunblock is. And you can easily tell why all of a sudden skincare companies started putting SPF in all their products, marketing it as, anti-wrinkle and all these other benefits. And yet it's just a huge money making operation. And I'll stop in a second here to let you ask whatever questions. But one more thing that I would like to say is when I moved to Nashville 6 years ago, and I decided this was right before my cancer diagnosis. I was slathering on my sunblock. I was doing my 3-mile walk a day. I was like, okay, I'm getting my mid 30s. I need to start taking care of myself, be intentional with my workout. And that is when I found the spot on my leg. And I know my body really well. I was like, that wasn't there before. I need to go get that checked. And about 6 months after my cancer diagnosis, there was a huge worldwide recall of a sunblock ingredient called oxybenzone, known to cause cancer. And I went under my cabinet and I pulled it out, and I had this organic Australian sunblock that I was using, and the first ingredient was oxybenzone. And I knew that it was actually me putting on the sunblock that was causing the skin cancer, and it wasn't the sun. And I stopped fearing it.
I feel like that ingredient is still being used, or is it just a sister of that ingredient? Because there's so many sunblocks out there that have the long the long words as their first couple ingredients. That and I know that zinc is really, if you're going to use sunblock, you want to use a zinc based.
I wouldn't use zinc. I'm not sure, sister. I don't wear sunblock anymore, and I
Yeah.
haven't since my cancer diagnosis and learning everything that I know about the sun. But there would be a few places that you might need to apply something on your skin. I would use something like coconut oil. It
Mhm.
will protect, like, if you're gonna be in the sun all day long and you're just not gonna be able to put on a hat or cover your arms, or you haven't built up the tan and there's no way out, then I would use something more natural like coconut oil. Won't last very long and you'll have to reapply it, but that's a point. Then it's kind of more natural. But if you build up your solar callus, you don't have to do that. So my children have see-through white skin. You can see their blue veins on their arms and legs. My husband is Danish. He has a red beard, blonde hair, blue eyes. I mean, we are as white as can be. And we started doing this process where we watch the sunrise every single morning. It's our sacred time as a family. We go outside on the porch, we watch the sunrise, we do our family morning prayer together. We read, a couple pages out of a book. So we have this like really beautiful routine. Then we go inside, we eat breakfast, and then we put on our tennis shoes and we go for a 3-mile walk as a family during UVA. So the first hour after sunrise, that's the sunrise hour. Then the next 2 hours, usually, depending on where you're at, would be ultraviolet A. And ultraviolet A light is super healing. It has a higher concentration of that red light, and it literally starts every single hormonal process in your body. It's the precursor to let your body know what time of day it is, so that way it could do all the processes that it knows to kick off during UVA time. And then after that would be UVB until kind of mid afternoon or late afternoon, depending on time of year, where the UVB will set. Then it'll be another hour or two of UVA light. And then you'll have the sunset hour. And, if you can imagine a bell curve, that's what it would look like. Now, if you prep your skin with sunrise, skin and eyes, I'll say bare eyes, and UVA, during UVA, your body has an internal sun-blocking process that gets kicked. And most people don't realize that. During UVA, you also are making melatonin. And so this hormone that people know as the sleep hormone, you're actually building it in the morning. And so if you're not getting out during that UVA hour or two, you might have problems getting to sleep. That combined with artificial light. But we were going to this, like, what do you call it? The park where there's like all the water slides and all that kind of stuff. And my husband goes, okay, we got to lather on sunblock. And I go, no, we're not doing that. It was over 100 degrees that day. It was on black asphalt and we were in the water all day long. And I told you about how fair skinned we are. And we were there all day. And not one of us even got red or got sunburnt. And my husband said, I didn't believe you until now. That I cannot believe that we were at a water park and not one of us got burnt. And it was because we prep our skin. And as we layer on the light in the order that the sun comes up during the day, your body has all these processes to take care of itself and to protect you.
Couple questions.
Yes.
So with building up the natural sun defense system, I should say, in our bodies by
Yeah.
utilizing that UVA in the morning, how much of our skin in the morning do we need to actually have exposed to the UVA? Is just our eyes sufficient? Because if it's in the middle of winter, it's cold, we want to bundle up. And I know that's a whole nother discussion in regards to cold acclimation. And that also goes along with quantum biology. But if somebody's just starting, and even here in San Diego, this time of year, it's still chilly in the morning, chilly for us.
Yeah.
And so I naturally want to have my sweatshirt on, but I'm going outside. I'm exposing my my eyes to the natural light. Is that enough to have it on my face and my eyes?
That's a great question. And of course, it's going to be very tailored to every single person and what conditions they're dealing with. But say you have gut issues, you want to show your stomach to the sun. I mean, I would say go out naked. but that's not practical for everyone. Definitely your eyes and bare eyes, because our eyes are little photon receptors and so is our skin. So as much as you can humanly stand to expose, that's where the benefits are, the therapeutic effects of it. So UVA light is like a natural red light therapy. So there's a lot of people that are buying the red light panels. Well, you don't need to buy that. You can just use UVA time during the day. So if you have an injury you're trying to heal, or a scar you're trying to heal, or reverse your eyesight, which I'm doing and currently in the process of doing, using natural light, just go outside. And if it's cold, what I would say is, say you have an elderly patient who just cannot tolerate the cold, have them sit by a window and open the window so they're still inside the house, or crack open just the door in order to get that light. The other thing that I would recommend is getting in your car, turning the heater on, and opening your sunroof or opening the window.
Really quick, Holly B here. I just wanted to interrupt the podcast to ask you for a quick favor. Can you take just a moment to like and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you are listening in on? It makes a world of a difference. And the reach of this podcast, it takes like literally under 10 seconds. So go do that right now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And now back to the episode.
So there's a couple ways that you can do it if you can't physically be outside because of the weather, which I think everyone should get out in the cold. But if you can't, there's definitely some other alternatives.
I do go to work several days a week at an office, and I get up, I'm able to go outside, spend a few minutes in the natural sunrise, but then I have to get inside, get ready for work. I keep the overhead lights off until I have to put my mascara on, but I've already seen the natural light. But then I do that hack on the way to work. I put the heater on if I need to, and I always have the windows down. Granted, I do need to wear glasses while I'm driving. So I know that cuts down on some of the UVA that's coming in through my eyes. So I don't know if that's something you can address as well, but I do have that window down. If it's bright out, I don't need the glasses. If it's overcast, I need the glasses. So I play around with that. Middle of the day, I'm fine without glasses, but sometimes the glare is too much. So I will wear sunglasses just on those occasions. But the point being is that there are lots of little hacks. Also, when I'm getting ready in the morning, I have a bathroom window. So I open the bathroom window, and that gives me enough natural light to do most of what I need to do and still get that
Nice.
natural light in my eyes. Or I could open the front door and get some light coming in while I'm doing yoga in my living room. So there are different ways that we can play around with that for sure.
So much to address there, but I guess I'll start with, just know that every single pane of glass that you sit behind is blocking the UV light. And the government does these things, like makes rules like this, and they don't know what kind of effect it's going to have on our health. So your car and your house and your office, it's all the UV light is being blocked. So just because you have maybe a shade open, that doesn't mean you're getting natural sunlight. So I think that's just a very important distinction to make. The other thing is, I wear something called Viva Rays, and they have them in prescription and also non-prescription, but they let in UV light. So they're, I forget if it's 50 or 60%. So when I'm walking, I will have just my Viva Rays on with no, right now I'm wearing yellow filters because I'm filtering being on a device. But when I'm walking outside, I'll just wear the clear ones. And these are cool. They have little magnetic, the oranges and the reds that you can put on at night. And we can talk about that when we talk about blocking artificial light. So that's a cool trick that I use. I also have a boat and a lake house, and there are times when it is absolutely essential to protect your eyes. And those times would be on the snow and it would be on the water. So if you can visibly see the sun and it's reflecting off the water, I would say my circadian rhythm is so strong that if I go on a 20-minute jet ski ride or a boat ride and I'm wearing sunglasses, my circadian rhythm isn't going to be messed up for very long because we do so many other things right. So you definitely want to protect your eyes in those circumstances for sure. The other thing too is in my house, you can replace your light bulbs with something like block blue light. I think there's a light bulb called Hygie's. There's lots of different companies that you can go. They're LED lights, but they actually have zero blue light in them. So I love those. In my house, I have some of those, and also when I need brighter lights, when, during the winter months when it's dreary outside, or incandescent lights everywhere that kind of give you that warm glow. And so if I have to use lights in the morning or at nighttime, that's what I do. But at night, we will use red light bulbs in our living area. So we turn on all the lights, and then we have these two lamps that have these red lights in them. And that's how we'll navigate at night. And then what'll happen is your melatonin will start rising up and your cortisol starts going down, you get sleepy. So our routine is we are pretty religious about going to bed at 8 o'clock at night, which is pretty important for your body. Starts all of its healing processes between the hours of 10 and 2 a.m. So you definitely want to be asleep at least by 10, if not earlier.
I grew up in the restaurant industry. So for years, probably 15 years or so, I was up late. Sometimes if I was the closer at a restaurant that closed at 2 in the morning, I might not get to bed till 4:30. And I was able to switch that to getting off between 10 and midnight. But, your body just gets used to that. But when you're having health issues, it makes everything that much harder. And I didn't get that for so long, but I got to a point where I just intuitively knew that this wasn't serving my body anymore. And while I still do special events here and there within the industry, it's few and far between and usually off much earlier. So it doesn't bother me as much. But when I finally started making that transition to a day job and getting up early and seeing sunrise or close to it for like the first time in the majority of my adult life, it was amazing. I had so much more energy, and even just my emotional state changed. Even if I have a tough time getting up, as soon as I step outside, I see the beautiful change in the sky as the sun's coming up and I hear all the birds chirping. I'm filled with a sense of joy and a sense of hope and a sense of possibility that I never really had before. I mean, I would sporadically, but not like on a deep level, like getting up and seeing sunrise does for me now. And I didn't really expect that to be the case. So that was really a wonderful surprise when I started shifting that. And honestly, I look forward to it. And my body wants to naturally wake up at that time. And I'm struggling a little bit right now with my evening schedule because of some scheduling changes, few things that I've added in at the end of my day that causes me to push back dinner and push back bedtime a little bit. But 10 is like late for me now. 10 is like my cutoff. I try to be in bed by 9, winding down. I'll read a little bit. I have low lights, I have warm lights, and that routine just feels so much more nourishing to me. And I think, it's hard because people have these hectic schedules, kids going to school, who knows what work is, maybe you have an evening job. When you're working with your clients who have this, standard American lifestyle, we'll call it, how do you start coaching them on how to change their routine from what they're used to?
Yeah. Again, I think every situation is going to be different. So this answer can vary quite a bit. But especially if someone is sick and they're trying to overcome, for instance, an autoimmune disorder, they have to put themselves first and them as the priority. And so, one of the things I work with people on is setting boundaries. So, if there's something that's happening at night that they can say no to, if it's not like their job or something else, what we try to do is get them to say yes to themselves instead of saying yes to everybody else. And you'd be surprised how many people have a problem with saying no and putting themselves first. But if somebody has a job at night, what I would say is, so these yellow blue blocking glasses, what they will do is they will block anything that is above the full spectrum light of the sun. So, for instance, our devices are much, much brighter than what the brightest day of the sun would be. And so we're actually harmonizing the light right now with the lights I have on me in my podcast studio. I am blocking anything that would be, more than natural outside. The second thing you want to do is you want to put on orange blue blocking glasses after about an hour after sunset. And what that will do is block all blue light. And why that's important is after sunset or during sunset hour, there's no more blue light outside. So if you're artificially pumping blue light into your eyes, it can restart your bodily hormones all over again. And you see this all the time where people just say, I'm a night owl. It's just the way I've always been. They're staying up all night, going to sleep at 3 or 4 in the mornings. I have a brother like this. He loves video games. He plays every night, stays up all night, and sleeps during the day. The fact is, if you put on orange or even red blue blocking glasses, and red actually are more extreme, you want to put those on about an hour within bedtime. That will block all blue and green light. Some people are a little more sensitive to green light as well. There's no way your melatonin isn't going to get released and you're not going to get sleepy and go to bed. So, if you're someone who has a really hard time going to sleep, just blocking artificial light at night, wearing good quality blue blockers, and not having lights flicked on could help you a lot dial it back. And even if you have someone who's chronically been going to bed at like 1 a.m. and they don't have to, right? Like, let's just say they're not in an industry where they're going to bed, they're just staying up that late. You could just ask them to go to bed 15 minutes early. So this week, we're going to focus on, instead of going to bed at 1, let's go to bed at 12:45. And the next week, let's see if we can shift that to 12:30. But as soon as they start wearing blue blocking glasses, it will happen earlier and earlier. And I guess one thing that I'll say is there's a lot of blue blocking glasses out there, you guys. They're not all created equal. For instance, you'll see a lot of them that are clear that look very fashionable. Those are not blocking the right light spectrums. You have to actually have a yellow lens for it to do that.
And what times of day are you wearing the yellow lens? Is that anytime during the day where you're in front of a screen?
Correct.
Okay. So if somebody is working in an office under fluorescent lights, they want to be wearing yellow glasses.
Yep. And I would take lots of light breaks outside and take your glasses off, eat your lunch outside, see if you can do one-on-ones outside, walking, you're meeting with your boss, sitting outside or at the coffee shop outside. Find any excuse to get outside as much as possible. They joke about it in the quantum biology industry is smokers are actually healthier than the people that don't smoke in an office building. Why? Because they're going outside, once an hour or once every 2 hours to have a cigarette. They're getting that natural light exposure into their eyes and onto their skin. And even though they're doing something that's a bad habit, they actually can be healthier than people who are stuck under those lights all day long and don't get outside at all.
Never thought about that. I love it.
Yeah.
I do that as well. I do take breaks to get outside on my lunch break. I will take several laps around the building, no matter what the weather is, and make sure that I'm getting outside, doing some grounding. There's, a handful of trees around there, so I'll hang onto a tree or I'll take my shoes off if, you know, it's the right environment and just get that fresh air break, get that sun break so I can go back to work refreshed. Not to mention, that's going to help me digest my food if I'm walking around right after I eat and that sort of thing. Like you said earlier, opening up a window, if at all possible, depending on what your office scenario looks like. In our office, we can open the front door so we can get some of that natural light coming in. It angles sort of towards me where I am at the desk. So the little hacks, we take what we can get, and they can compound on each other, even if it seems like a small thing.
And I
Yeah.
think you said something really important is it does not matter what the weather is outside. You might go outside and look at it, a complete cloud coverage, it being really dark. Guess what? Your eyes and your skin is still getting that light spectrum that it needs. It's getting all the information that it needs to know where you're at on earth, what time of day it is, what season it is, right? This is how we create coherence like in our body is our bodies just want information, and light is information. And I always say darkness is the lack of information, light is information. And it does not matter what the weather is. Today it's storming outside here in Nashville. You still want to get outside during those times and make sure you're exposing yourself to light. Um,
Hmm. And
you brought up, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you about sunglasses.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because we've always been taught to wear sunglasses. They're super fashionable and cute, right? But also with me having light eyes, having green eyes, I've been told, oh, you got to protect your eyes more. Your eyes are more sensitive. You're going to have more skin issues when you have light eyes. That's straight from the dermatologist's mouth. I'm sure you've heard that as well. But quantum biology teaches to take the sunglasses off, and that's how you're going to get more of those benefits. So, can you speak to that a little bit?
Right. So, what are you doing when you're putting sunglasses on? You are blocking all UV light. What happens when you're blocking all the UV light and putting something, a dark tint over your eyes? Your body thinks, oh, it's not daytime anymore, it's nighttime. What happens? Your sunblock capabilities inside your body start shutting down, getting ready to go to bed. And all of a sudden, you're more you're going to burn more quickly than you would if you weren't even covering your eyes. So, trust me, I have thousands of dollars worth of beautiful, expensive sunglasses that I had to go and sell on Marketplace for a quarter of what they cost me. And that was a really sad day. But your eyes will get used to it, right? It'll be hard at first. But as you layer on the sun, your body is magic. God doesn't make mistakes. Your body knows exactly what to do. And the second thing that I do is I'll just put on a baseball cap. I know it's not fashionable, but it'll shield your eyes and it won't do all the harm to your body. Again, like I said earlier, if you're on water or in snow, absolutely put on sunblock or not sunblock, sorry, sunglasses. Protect your eyes. But outside of those scenarios, I would really avoid it if
Yeah, I
possible.
got used to hats. I just got used to hats. And because I didn't want to put on sunblock either, that was my first reason for wearing hats because I do want to protect my skin from sun aging to an extent, but I also, you know, I just know that, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. I started wearing hats to protect my skin, but in doing so, it was like a default. I couldn't actually comfortably wear my sunglasses with the hats. And I
Yes.
found that so I would take the sunglasses off and I actually found out that I had less glare without the sunglasses. So I just got used to wearing hats and covering the glare that way. And it's so much more comfortable. And my only issue is that I wish I had better vision so that I could see better without glasses. So that's what I'm up against now. But with I do have a plan on getting Viva Rays because they do the prescription with the clear glasses. So I can do that and wear glasses outside. Feel like I can see everything clearly when I'm on a nature walk. And I'm like, I think that's a bird. I wish I could see what kind it was. So
And I'll tell you, I've been correcting my eyesight over the past 2 years. I started at a -4.5, and now I'm down to a -2.5. And the way I've done that is with Viva Rays, because you can actually remove these lenses and get a 0.25 prescription lower. And so, how I've been doing it is I started with my normal prescription, and then I bought the next lenses because you could just unscrew these, replace the lenses with the little bit of a tiny difference of a lower prescription. What happens is your eye is a muscle like everything else in your body. So you give it just enough to be able to actually see, to be safe, obviously, with driving and watching TV and on your computer and all those things, but it will flex that muscle and it'll use it so that way it's struggling a little bit to see and it's working out that muscle. So far I've been able to get 2 full points down in my prescription to hopefully back to 20/20 vision.
amazing. Yeah, I will have to see. I'm open to that possibility for myself, but I've had quite an eyesight journey being at a -13 with
Wow.
yeah, with astigmatism. I did go through PRK surgery, which is more invasive than the regular LASIK. Did that a little bit too early. Eyes, of course, shift as we get older, and I've had some issues because of it, but we'll see. We'll see. One of my eyes is changing, one of mine not so much. And we're just playing around with it as I get into the point where I'm looking towards bifocals or progressives, I should say. But I think it's really important to just note that, again, like you were saying, we can build up the strength of the eye just in how it responds to bright light and the sun. And so just starting to train with wearing hats instead of sunglasses, maybe do that earlier in the day, later in the day, and just get used to that and build up that muscle. But I don't know that we actually pinpointed why specifically it's important to get natural sunlight in through the naked eye or through the clear Viva Rays glasses. What is it? What are those receptor sites in the eye, and why isn't it enough to just get the sunlight on our skin? Why do we need it in our eye as well?
Yeah, so if you're someone like yourself who had LASIK, you're gonna get refraction from the light. It's not going to be able to hit the back part of your light that is connected to your hypothalamus. So the signal is actually going through the light and it's going to tell your brain what time of day it is. And then that's going to cascade and tell your body what time of day it is and what to do. So the biggest receptors are in the back of our eyes. The second next receptor is our skin. And you have a lot of skin. So again, the more skin you expose, the the better it is at telling your body. So for someone who had LASIK, there's nothing you can do about it. It is what it is. At that point, I would suggest then show as much skin as possible throughout the year, right? Depending on
I
the
did
day.
not realize. Yeah, I didn't realize that about the LASIK.
Hmm.
Did not realize it affected it in that sense. Interesting. I will do more research on that. Yeah, I love what you said. I think I saw in one of your posts, you said shine first, heal later. And I think that sentence just captures everything that we just talked about. Until you're getting that sunlight into your skin and through your eyes to start triggering healing on that cellular level, because it's also triggering the all the hormonal responses in the body. Until we're setting up that stage of foundational health, the rest of what you're doing, whether that's supplements, medications, lifestyle stuff, none of that's going to be as effective until we're addressing this part of the issue. Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and interrupt the program for just a hot minute. You know that I'm so passionate about this podcast, but what I'm also really passionate about is helping women with lupus minimize their symptoms, boost their energy so that they can indulge in life again. So if you are a woman who is struggling with lupus, who is sick and tired of being sick and tired, who's struggling to manage your flares, If you're finding that your lupus symptoms are just really getting in the way of you being able to live your life the way you want to, I feel you. I've been there myself and I felt the same way. And what I've found is that there are a certain set of health fundamentals that, once applied, will support you in your foundational health. They will support you in building and maintaining that energy, minimizing flares, and allowing you to again indulge in life and follow your passions. So, if that is something that you are interested in creating for yourself, let's jump on a call together. I will walk you through the process that I use with my clients to get them from sick and tired to strong foundation of health by implementing my Health Bridge protocol. If this is something you're interested in chatting more about, I would love to talk to you. Apply for a free clarity call with me, and I look forward to getting to know you soon. And now back to the episode.
Yeah, and we didn't really talk about hydration yet in this podcast, but what sunlight is doing when it hits your skin is it's actually structuring the water inside your cells. And so when you look at it from a perspective of cellular healing, the intercellular, extracellular water that we have called exclusion zone water, or the fourth phase of water, as Jared Pollock put it, we're literally structuring this water inside of our cells. And you look at any disease, autoimmune condition, it is all mitochondrial dysfunction. And it all starts from our mitochondria and the water. 99 out of 100 molecules in our body are water, which seems crazy because you feel yourself and you're like, I'm a solid being, but you're made of water. And so the first thing you want to address is your light environment. But the second piece that you want to work on is hydration. Your blood plasma hydration is when you drink bulk water, what we call liquid water, the liquid form of water that, you probably learned in science class when you were a kid. When you drink that, that hydrates your blood plasma. But exclusion zone water, the intercellular water, is actually being created. Your body is creating more of it with sunlight exposure.
And tell us more about the exclusion zone water. Why is it so important for our health? What is it doing inside of our body?
You talked a little bit about grounding. I mean, there's so many different ways to describe this, but when you ground, you're creating a negative charge. And what we have found out is we need to have a negative charge in our cells in our body. Cancer, if you were to measure the voltage of a person who has cancer, they would have a positive charge. And so, exclusion zone, or the zone, is by next to any biological surface in your body. And it loves to have this wall of this negative charge. And what that negative charge is, if you've ever seen, have you ever put like chia seeds in water and seen how in a little bit they've created this like gel like substance? Well, that's what happens with your cells. And so when your cells are negatively charged and they're repelling off of each other, what can't they do? Clump together and form a tumor or cancer. So you want to keep a negative charge, and you want to make sure that that water is super hydrating. So it's bouncy. It's this gel like substance. So they're not clumping together. And then electrons can go anywhere in your body when you're super hydrated and you have good exclusion zone. All these extra electrons that you're collecting by grounding and doing all the things that you're doing, like touching trees and plants, things that are rooted into the ground, then you're getting all these free electrons, and those electrons can go anywhere in your body to fix anything and reverse disease.
So it's essentially creating coherence in the body. It's creating a communication system within the body so that all of your different organ structures, all of your different, everything going on within your body can communicate clearly with itself, and it can send energy where it's needed to combat something that's going, misfiring. versus when we have not built up that exclusion zone water. Things are not in coherence. They are not able to communicate because there's breakage in the pathways.
Correct.
And so when it comes to, just to bring this back to autoimmune conditions, I see autoimmune conditions as not just what we're told, where the body is misfiring and attacking itself. I see that as the body is in a state of incoherence. Things aren't communicating properly. So, how do we create coherence again in the body so that my systems stop attacking itself and attacking each other and recognizing something that's supposed to be there as an enemy? Well, we start at the root, right? We start by building this easy water, by being in sunlight, by grounding, by reducing our artificial light indoors and our screen time. That's how we start creating the communication systems in the body. There's no downside to doing this. There's only healing.
Right. And that's such a good point is there's nothing that's going to be bad that comes out of doing these things. And how do we build exclusion zone water? We expose ourselves to light, heat exposure. So, sauna, cuddling, working out, moving your body, cold exposure, deliberate cold exposure, whether it's showering, you know, running some cold water in a bathtub or putting ice in there. All those things, they're going to help you build that exclusion zone water. Even a hot bath, some of my elderly patients who can't necessarily are sensitive to heat can't necessarily get into something like a sauna, even like a warm bath. All those things are going to help you build that exclusion zone water.
And someone, just to speak specifically to lupus, oftentimes has Raynaud's syndrome, which is where you're hypersensitive to cool temperatures or cold temperatures, and you can actually lose circulation in your extremities. I get that sometimes as well. It used to be much worse than it is now. Sometimes the extreme colds, like the ice plunging, is way too harsh for where they're at in their health. So we can do this mildly, right? We can start mildly by just being in your hot shower, getting nice and toasty, and then just turning the temperature down, not all the way, but just down. So you can physically notice a temperature difference. And my understanding is that anything under body temperature could be considered cold therapy. And you don't need to do it for long. I believe that it's like 11 minutes a week of cold therapy is where you're going to start seeing those benefits. You don't need to, it's not necessarily the more the better or the colder the better. It's just exposing yourself to it and putting your body under that little bit of stress, which is a positive stress. And you can build on that. I'm going to be more sensitive to cold here in San Diego than somebody might be up in, Michigan, simply because of our natural environment. So let's meet ourselves where we're at and just start with these little things. You can also put hands under cold water, or you can do, a ice bath just for your face, right? You don't have to full body plunge. So I just want to make that clear that there are some little hacks for people to start to cold acclimate without needing to jump in a cryo freezer.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So there is a difference between full body immersion, something like jumping in an ice bath, and partial body cold exposure, like the shower. And that difference is when you submerge your entire body, you're going to come out of fight or flight mode about 45 seconds later into a parasympathetic mode. That is why if you could get into an ice bath and acclimate yourself and work your way up to doing that, there's huge benefits to doing full body immersion. When you do the partial body exposure to cold therapy is you're going to get into that fight or flight mode, but you won't move over to the parasympathetic. So if I have a client who will not get an ice bath, I have them get in a bathtub. And then, when that bathtub just starts getting too cold and like a little like less like warm, but like lukewarm and it's uncomfortable, I'll just say, just sit in that for 10 more minutes. Right. So you can acclimate by doing things that you might naturally want to jump out of that tub as soon as it cools down. But the study you referenced, the 11 minutes, it's under 60 degrees. Really, 60 degrees, that's still pretty darn warm. It's not freezing cold. So again, you don't need it to be like Joe Rogan where there's ice floating all around you. You can still get cold exposure.
I love that. Yeah, thanks for the clarification there. So, just to outline some things that our listeners can do if they're new to all this stuff. Just slowly working up with the cold exposure. I like the idea of being in the bath and just letting it cool and still staying in there. That seems so much more approachable to me than, having to do the ice bath or the cryo chamber. Slowly working your bedtime down to earlier, slowly working your wake time to earlier part of the day, finding little hacks throughout the day to get out in the sunshine, preferably during those UVA's hours. There are apps that we can use to help us identify when sunrise is, when sunset is, when those optimal UVA times are. I'll put links to these things in the show notes for people so they have these resources. When it comes to screen time and the blue light and the artificial light, again, like you were saying, changing the light bulbs. There are apps that I have on my phone and my computer that read my screen based on what time of day it is. So there are hacks. If we need to do computer work in the evening, we can at least have some other protective layers, to these things. I guess as we close here, what aspects of this haven't we touched on yet? I feel like everything that I've learned in the last several years on my health journey just brings me back to the realization that the way society is built is not applicable to the way our bodies were designed to live and interact with the environment. And I think as we make these shifts, it gets us more in tune with not only the natural environment, but it gets us more in tune with our bodies and our intuition. And I guess I'd like to know what your experience was with that and if you found that to be true for yourself as well.
I think the biggest change that we can make mindset wise is slowing down. I think we've now are in this world where it's instant gratification. You have all this information at a touch of a button, and we're more busy than we've ever been. If you look at the way that our ancestors lived, they would wake up, go feed the farm animals, do some chores, plant, pickle things. I don't know, whatever they used to do, go to church on Sundays and Wednesdays, maybe get together with family or community a couple nights a week, right? It was such a simple life. And I feel like we've gotten to this place where we've super complicated our schedules. I always say, if you feel overwhelmed by your full day, just cancel the day. You obviously need to take the day off because we overexert ourselves and we don't really realize it until we come down with something like an autoimmune disorder or cancer. And I always say those things are actually gifts. They're your body's cry for help. And I think one of the best things that we can do is slow down, clear our schedule, be intentional with our time, be intentional where we give our energy, what information we're receiving, and just be aware of your environment and set boundaries. Say no to things, say yes to the things that make you happy. It's very easy for us to be like, say yes to something and be like, oh, why did I do that? You don't owe anyone an explanation, by the way. You're an adult and you can just say no. Even after you've said yes, you can say no. You are a free, sovereign being. So, again, put yourself first because that is how you're going to be able to trust with yourself. You're going to be more aligned with your divinity, your intuition, and your body knows how to heal. It has all the tools. Just give it the right environment.
Mm-hmm. Oksana, where can everyone find you and where can they learn about the incredible event that you have coming up in person?
Oh, yes. Thank you. So it's Quantum Lens Wellness on all platforms and quantumlenswellness.com. I am hosting a quantum biology 2-day retreat with Carrie Bennett, Carrie B Wellness. It's June 26th and 27th in Franklin, Tennessee, which is right outside of Nashville. We have all the brilliant minds in the quantum biology space speaking at our event, and it's just going to be life changing, a phenomenal lineup, and we have some really cool activities planned.
You do have some amazing names lined up, some who I've been following for years, some who I've already had on my podcast. And yeah, if our listeners, if you can make it, I highly recommend it. This will give you that first really deep dive into what this as a lifestyle could look like for you, and how you can start incorporating it again into your life. So I highly, highly recommend our listeners go if they can. If not, definitely they can follow you on all your platforms, listen to your podcast as well. What's the name of your podcast?
It's the Quantum Lens podcast.
Perfect. Awesome. I'll have the links to all of that in the show notes. And thank you so much, Oksana, for sharing with us.
Thank you, Holly.
If this was your first time really hearing about the concepts of quantum biology and the health practices that are related to quantum biology and circadian rhythm and exclusion zone water, I'd love to know what your thoughts are around that. I'd love to know if this is like a brand new concept or if this like intuitively makes sense to you, or if you're like, how on earth am I going to implement this even with all the tips shared in the episode? I would really love to know your takeaways from this. So please reach out to myself and to Oksana with more questions, with comments, and be sure to leave any questions if you're listening to this on YouTube. Leave some questions in the comments and we'd be happy to answer them for you. What I want to get back to is how important this is to the autoimmune community, how important these concepts are, and making these subtle but extremely impactful changes are on your foundational health and in creating that coherence back within your body that your body has lost. Your body has been struggling and it created these autoimmune conditions to tell you that something is not right, right? To tell you that it needs help, it needs love, it needs nourishment and assistance. And starting by resetting your quantum biology lens with these different practices will absolutely help to shift your health experience. So, I'd like to ask you to please share this episode with somebody that needs to hear this message, or to share this with some friends to create and start that conversation with them and see how maybe you can support each other in taking some of these steps towards up-leveling your health routine. Make sure that you're checking out the resources underneath this episode. I dropped down there some tools that will be really helpful for you that we talked about in the episode that can help support this shift in your health journey. Make sure also to check out that retreat that Oksana is putting on in June of 2025. It will be an exceptional place for you to start this journey. And I speak to a lot of these concepts within my coaching program. It's made such a difference in my experience on a daily basis of health, of wellness, of vitality, of energy. And I want to help you with that in your journey as well. So, if you are ready to have a chat, then I would love to have you apply for a call with me and we'll get to know each other a little bit more and see if we're aligned to work together. Thank you so much for listening in to this podcast. And I look forward to seeing you again on the next episode of the Health Bridge podcast.